Yeah, you know, if you read our manifesto, it is a very comprehensive. You can look at it. There's a supply side, and then there's expenditure side, and that manifesto. People only tend to look at what we are offering, like the 6,000 shillings, the poor families. That is like a charity, and that we don't have the money to do it. But everything that we put in that manifesto has been looked at in great details by the experts, and we know that we can actually achieve it. You can fund everything that is in that budget. Now, but you cannot be able to do it unless you deal with this animal called corruption. Corruption basically means diverting resources from the public coffers into private hands or pockets, as it were. And they say that there's no society in the world that is corruption-free. The difference is what is done with the corrupt when they are found, and what are the institutions that have been put in place to deal with corruption, and how effective those institutions are. You will know that former president of Korea, South Korea that is in prison right now. She was tried and imprisoned. That is something that is almost unthinkable on the African continent. Now, we've said that it is a process, this corruption issue. And it grows as the society grows. And unless it is dealt with, it can actually be choking. No actual development will be taking place in the society. We have had practical experience of this issue of corruption. John Githong was just talked to you here. We call him the corruption guru, or Sir, when he was there, and he was really a feared person. He became very unpopular with many people in the NAC government. But the NAC government came to power on the promise of dealing with this death knell to corruption. And the public servants, right from the top, were required to do asset declaration. And this asset declaration was supposed to be deposited in Parliament with the office of the Speaker. At that time when John is telling you that the public were arresting the policemen who were soliciting the bribe, the environment became very optimistic. People say that Kenyans were the most optimistic people in the world. But unfortunately, they were arresting these policemen and taking them to the police station and handing them over to their own colleagues, who were just basically now treating them with velvet gloves. We are all very sorry that you are dismissed up with the public. So nothing was actually happening to them. With time now, the public eventually, the enthusiasm died among the members of the public. But now, our own experience, I'll give you an example of what I found in the Ministry of Roads and Public Works. I found a very heavy portfolio of pending bills. Pending bills. And this you can also see even today in most of the institutions. Very heavy portfolio of pending bills. And then I also sat down and worked out with my officers the cost of actual road constructions. Because I found that construction rates in Uganda are much lower than in Kenya. That Uganda is passing most of our raw materials, like bitumen and so on, through Kenya. Tanzania was even much lower. So I asked myself, why should it be? And when I sat down with my engineer to quantify it, we found that the costs were heavily exaggerated. A standard bitumen road, 1 kilometer, was going at a rate of 55 million shillings. But when we really broke it down, we were able to reduce it to 25 million shillings. So we are saving 30 million shillings per kilometer. All that had been budgeted, put in the budget for the big boys, and is paid. Then the contractor themselves are colluding with the engineers. We had also engineers who had their own construction companies competing with other contractors. They are the engineers in the ministry, the advertising, then they are the ones who adjudicate the tenders, then award it to their own construction companies, and then the ones who go to inspect the works, issue certificates. At the end of the month, they are paid by the government, and at the end of the month, they are again being paid as staff of the ministry. Those things like those. So we found that actually there's a lot of wastage. And then this pending bill portfolio that I found was so huge. I decided to set up a task force to look at it. It was 10 billion shillings at that time. This is about 500 billion shillings today. When they did the audit, professional audit, both technical and financial, they found that the government actually only owed 300 million shillings. But the government was actually owed in wrongful payment 1.5 billion shillings. Money which had been paid, which ought not to have been paid. So I presented this report to the cabinet. When the cabinet saw this report, then they decided to set up a subcommittee to deal with issues of corruption in the government. It was headed by the Minister for Finance. I was a member. The Minister for Justice then was a member, and other members. John Gidongo was our secretary in that committee. That is how we ended up with Kroll coming here. When Kroll came here and did the investigations, then we came up with Anglo-Lisi. He now called some other ministers. But now we're saying that this thing, animal called corruption, can only be found if there is a will to do it, and if the institutions entrusted to deal with it do actually function properly. And it must cut across board. Because what we have in mind requires that things need to be done properly and also speedily. So you need to ensure that all the arms of government are working in tandem